Just over 200 years ago, on the 27th of September 1825, the Stockton and Darlington Railway ran their first ever public passenger train, and with it, the modern railway as we know it was born. But how exactly does one go about celebrating the 200th anniversary of the railways, honouring all the locomotives, the stock, the routes, the innovators, the passengers from the past and the present and the future? Well, it's simple really, by throwing a massive party. For one glorious weekend in the summer of 2025, the city of Derby hosted a festival of trains and railway history covering all possible eras in a quite literally once-in-a-generation event. This is the story of the Greatest Gathering.
Well, hello there, people of the internet. Welcome back to another station, another mile. And, happy 200th birthday to the railways. It's a big birthday. 200 years, that's a long time. That's a really long time. And so to celebrate it, or as part of the Railway 200 celebrations, I'm currently on a train to Derby on a grey-ish August day. Why Derby? Why am I going there, of all places? Well, as part of the celebrations, the Alstom Loco and Train Works at Derby Litchurch Lane, they're throwing a birthday party, shall we say. It's just a little gathering. Hang on, did I say little? I actually meant the greatest gathering. That's actually what it's called. The greatest gathering. The greatest gathering. Oh, speaking of trains, we're just passing one. What loco's on the front? I'm going to go with a 66. It almost always is a 66. Oh, it's a 70. It was a Colas Rail Class 70. So there you go. But yes, the greatest gathering is basically a sort of a birthday party for the modern railway. Well, the railway as we know it. The whole point of it is that it is effectively a celebration of the past, the present, and the future of British railways. Yeah, I couldn't exactly miss that. I'm not normally a big kind of birthday parties person, but felt kind of rude to turn this one down, you know what I mean? However, plot twist, I came up yesterday, and I kind of had a look around the day before, and I also came up via Crew. What we're going to do now is show you what I got up to on the Greatest Gathering, day 0? -1? Anyway, this was my day yesterday.
So it was right here, just over 40 miles away from Derby, in the equally historic railway city of Crewe, that my Greatest Gathering weekend actually started one day early. With trains travelling to the event from all corners of the country, the Branch Line Society decided to turn one of these routine stock movements into a rail tour in itself, as Class 57 diesel locomotive number 57307 Lady Penelope dragged Class 390 Pendolino unit 390119 Progress to Derby, with us all on board. Now, both of these trains are very special in their own ways. 390119 wears a spectacular full-wrap Pride livery, the first livery of its kind on any train in the UK. And the name comes from the Progress Train social media campaign. And just in case you were wondering what the Thunderbirds connection is for 57307, between 2002 and 2012, she was actually part of a fleet of Class 57s hired by Virgin Trains for rescuing broken-down Pendolinos and dragging them along non-electrified routes. Hence, they got the nickname Thunderbirds. The fleet of locos were even named after characters and machines from the TV show, and Lady Penelope still wears her nameplate proudly to this day. FAB. Once we arrived into Derby, we got a sneak peek around the Greatest Gathering site the night before it opened to the public, as well as a ride on the Litchurch Lane Works test tracks aboard a train built and tested at this very site, a Class 345 Elizabeth Line train. And with locomotives and exhibits still arriving and being set up well into the night, even this all-too-brief preview could only give the merest hint of just how epic a weekend this was going to be.
That's what I got up to yesterday, the day before the Greatest Gathering actually starts. which is today. I've been referring to it as kind of a big birthday party. It basically is. It kind of has a sort of festival vibe to it, because the event itself isn't just a load of trains all in the same place for you to look at. I mean, that's the main thing, but there's other things going on. There's like technology displays, there'll be merch stalls, there's a model railway exhibition part as well, which I'm very excited about. You know me, I like small trains almost as much as I like big full-size trains. Obviously, yesterday's rail tour was run by the Branch Line Society. They're running a bunch of special shuttles on all 3 days, special little rail tours. There's other rail tours that are coming up over the weekend to all sort of tie into it. So it all has this really nice sort of kind of festival atmosphere to it. I don't think there's many more fitting ways to celebrate 200 years of railways in the UK. 200. That's a lot. Anyway, enough waffling. I need to drink this tea, and let's head to Derby. Let's go.
Did you get lunch? Did you get anything from that? Yeah, well, I want to see if we can get
I'm just up at
Hiya. Hello.
Okay, so you know how I said this is almost like the Glastonbury Festival for train nerds? It's kind of similar to a festival in several ways. The queue's quite long. I came in on one of the vintage shuttle buses that have been provided to take us from the station to the works. I think my sort of grumbling energy is helping, because the queue has just started moving a bit quicker. So hopefully if I grumble a bit more, we'll be inside in no time.
While we wait, you might be wondering, why Derby of all places? Well, not only is it one of the few places large enough to host an event of this magnitude, but the city of Derby itself has a deep historical connection to the railways, stretching right back almost to the very beginning. The first locomotive works in Derby opened in 1840, and as capacity was quickly reached to this site, a separate carriage and wagon works was opened around 3/4 of a mile away on Litchurch Lane in 1876. At its peak, this site employed upwards of 5,000 people to work on building and maintaining around 6,000 vehicles a year. And even to this day, 6 of the 7 buildings that comprise the original works are still in use, with other buildings like U Shop dating back to 1910. Just some of the stock that has rolled off the production lines here down the years include British Rail Mark I coaches, the Derby Lightweight DMUs, Class 158 and 159 Express Sprinters, various classes of the Pacers, London Underground 2009 and S stock, and the Electrostar, Turbostar, and of course the Lizzie Line trains. And with Alstom's closure of their Washwood Heath plant in 2005, Derby Litchurch Lane now stands as the last remaining rolling stock manufacturing site in the UK, carrying not only its own legacy, but the entire history of British train building with it. Ergo, it's a fitting place to host an event like the Greatest Gathering. Anyway, it's about time we got properly acquainted with the place, because just like that, we're in.
So thankfully, mutterings and grumblings that queue was going to take 2 hours to get through were very much unfounded, incredibly unfounded. The important thing is, got through the queue, got through security checks. I then promptly joined another queue to go get some food, because I hadn't had anything to eat this morning, and I was going to struggle making it all the way through today on no food and maybe a couple of cups of tea. But most importantly, after all that, we're in. We're here. We're out here. I've got to say, it's a very decently large gathering, although I feel like that would be a bit not kind of catchy enough to put on the poster. A slightly alright sized gathering. It's not really going to sell it, is it? And I don't know if you could tell, but sell it they definitely have. All 3 days are sold out. I believe to the tune of about 12,000 tickets for each day. Yeah, there's a lot of people here. I've jokingly referred to this section, by the way, as the My Dad corner. There's a Western and a warship. Diesel hydraulics, there's peaks. If he was given a part of this gathering to curate himself, this would be it. Maybe some Class 50s. And there's a lot of those here as well. Over there, we have the warship D821 Greyhound, which, if you remember back from my Spa Valley Railway video, that showed up there. And then next to it is the flagship of the preserved Western fleet, D1015 Western Champion. Instantly nestled in amongst all these diesels is the Metropolitan Railway number 12 electric loco, Sarah Siddons. Amusingly, I like the fact that on the information board, It says, please don't call this a diesel. We'll be very upset. Which is quite funny given that it's nestled in amongst a load of diesels. There is in fact a whole section called Electric Avenue, you see what they did there, for electric locos. I don't know if Sarah just got lost or she was like, I'm going to hang out with my diesel mates. I don't get to hang out with them very often. I'm a rebel. Yeah, anyway, today's the sort of day with so many people around, just get in as much as you can and enjoy it as much as you can. There's everything going on. You got to work out which places to hit and what places you can get done and see in the time. It's very exciting. What was that I just said about getting everything done today? I better stop waffling then and take you around. Let's go.
Alongside all the many static displays, there were also 7 demonstration train rides operating across the event. Train Ride 1 was the Elizabeth Line test track train, and in lieu of having already ridden on it the day before, my first port of call was instead to Train Ride 3, an adorable narrow gauge demonstration train. Running on temporary tracks from the Statfold Barn Railway, this train featured an appropriate combination of the oldest surviving operational narrow gauge locomotive in the UK, the Festiniog Railway's Prince of 1863, and the most recent narrow gauge loco built in the UK, Tranquil No. 4, built in 1971. That's an age gap of a mere 108 years. And really, it's only fitting that narrow gauge is represented here this weekend. The first loco-hauled train of any kind actually took place on the narrow gauge Penydarren Tramway in South Wales on the 21st of February 1804, predating locomotion number 1 by 21 years. And the honour of the world's first heritage railway belongs to the Talaclyn Railway in Wales, first opening in 1865, before reopening as a heritage operation in 1951. Small in stature they may be, but narrow gauge's impact on railway history cannot be overstated. Unsurprisingly, one of the big highlights of the day for me was this, the Steam Cavalcade section. A glorious parade of some of the most historic and legendary steam locomotives from throughout history, including some familiar faces, as well as a few major celebrities that I'd never actually met before.
So something interesting about this weekend is how... Do you mind? I'm trying to vlog over here. I think it's Hagley Hall over there doing it. And then that was the Furnace Railway number 20. Just answering back like, peep, I'm not loud. I can't win the whistle wars. So something that I've heard quite a few people mention about this event is they've said there's a lot of stuff here, but it's a lot of stuff that you can probably see or have already seen elsewhere on heritage railways and places like that. That is certainly true of me. I've been lucky enough to see a lot of the stuff to here this weekend before, and even ride behind it and stuff like that. But there's 2 very notable omissions. 2 very notable steam locomotives that I've never seen in person until this weekend. And they're probably the 2 most famous ones. Those locos are Tornado and the Flying Scotsman. You may have heard of them. Unbelievably, today is the first time I've ever seen them in person, in the flesh, as it were. And it's kind of interesting seeing them for the first time here in this kind of environment because, I mean, Tornado has a history and a reputation all of its own, of course. It was the first full-on new build steam loco that kind of proved that if there weren't any of an old class of loco left, you could build a brand new one from scratch. And of course, it's ended up being a TV star. I most remember it from that episode of Top Gear where they raced it to Edinburgh. It's a celebrity in its own right, rightfully so. And especially in the case of the Flying Scotsman, I mean, it kind of feels like you can't sit on the fence with the Flying Scotsman. It's either an absolute legend of railways or a complete rolling money pit that should have been sent off for scrap years ago. And it is quite funny because just standing next to it today, it was kind of like, there it is. A bit of the Jeff Goldblum gear from Jurassic Park. Well, there it is. There it is. And I think it's kind of interesting because most of the time, if the Flying Scotsman's out anyway, if it's at a heritage railway or on a rail tour, it's packed. It's a draw. It's a superstar. And I think rightfully so. It's earned that reputation a lot. But also here, it's just one of many. It literally is another loco out here. And I think it's quite interesting looking at them like that. And I may well be one of the few people in the world who doesn't have a strong opinion about the Flying Scotsman. I'm glad it's still alive. I'm glad it's still here. Of the kettles, the many kettles that are out here this weekend, I got more excited seeing Clan Line and British India Line, the merchant navies, Bahamas, our old friend from the Keith and Worth Valley. There's lots. There's many kettles. Just massive trainage. That's what this event should have been called. Epic trainage. And unbelievably, we've got about an hour and a half left today, and there's still a load that I haven't seen yet. So let's get cracking with that, shall we?
Next on the agenda was a visit to V Shop, where I found a few more historic steam locomotives on display outside. Among them was Furnace Railway number 20, built in 1863 and still going strong as the UK's oldest fully operational standard gauge steam locomotive. Not bad for over 160 years old. Also in this section was another film star, LMS Royal Scot Class number 46115 Scots Guardsman, who featured in the 1936 promotional film Night Mail. Public service broadcasting fans should be pretty familiar with that one. Oh, and I found out who was responsible for all that whistling. It wasn't actually Great Western Railway Hall number 4930 Hagley Hall, but in fact her stablemate from the Severn Valley Railway, LMS Stania Mogul number 13268. Naturally, she got rather camera shy once I turned up.
Oh, I see how it is. As soon as I start filming, you stop too, I see how it is.
Inside V-Shop itself was an interesting selection of electric multiple units, like this Networker Class 465 number 465908 from my neck of the woods, resplendent in retro Network Southeast livery to celebrate Railway 200. Also in here was this stalwart of Merseyrail, Class 507 unit number 507001, complete with original 1978 livery and a fully operational on-train announcement system for folks to try out.
Welcome to this Merseyrail service to Hunts Cross, calling at Birkdale, Hillside, Ainsdale, Freshfield, Moorfields, Liverpool Central, Brunswick, St Michael's, Egburn, Cressington, Liverpool South Parkway, and Hunts Cross.
Just across from V-Shop was Train Ride 6, featuring the shiny new Tri-Mode Class 93, number 93009, offering demonstration cab rides. Tri-Mode refers to the 3 different power sources that the loco can use, either 25 kilovolt overhead electric wires, an onboard 1,200 horsepower diesel engine, or a 540 horsepower battery pack, which can either power the locomotive on its own, or be used as a hybrid unit with the diesel engine. Very clever. And then it was here that I found a pair of unassuming 1980s DMUs, a Sprinter and a Pacer. This particular Sprinter is Class 150 number 150231, which had only just concluded a 38-year operational career a few weeks prior to the Greatest Gathering, and to celebrate being the first of its class to enter preservation on the Watercress line, it was freshly outfitted for the weekend in the same Regional Railways livery it would have carried when it first entered service back in February of 1987. The Pacer alongside was Class 142 number 142113, also preserved, having been withdrawn in 2020, and also in a retro livery, the Greater Manchester Passenger Transport Executive Orange. And having been built right here at this very works in 1985, this weekend must have been a nice homecoming for the old donkey. Here's to a happy retirement for both of these old workhorses. By now, time really was of the essence, so it was a bit of a mad dash to see as much as I could. I managed to catch London North Western Railway coal tank number 1054, ably demonstrating the works turntable in the far corner of the site, before popping into G-Shop to find the locomotive that started it all, locomotion number 1 herself, as well as British Railway Standard 3MT number 82045, a work-in-progress new build project like Tornado to construct a new member of a class which had no survivors. Oh, and also in G-Shop was Train Ride 7, which is part of an entire section dedicated to 5-inch gauge miniature railways. Hey, when I said that all shapes and sizes were represented here this weekend, I really meant it. After that, I just about had time to take a walk down to Electric Avenue, which, as you could probably guess from the name, was full of classic electric locomotives. These included 2 sole survivors from the very first classes of electric locomotives built by British Railways in the early 1960s. Class 83 number 83012, wearing its original E3035 number and electric blue livery, and Class 85 number 85006. Also on show was the one-off experimental Class 89 and Class 91 number 91110. The holder of the national speed record for electric locomotives, having clocked 162 miles an hour near Peterborough in September 1989. As much as I love my diesels and my kettles, the chance to see such eclectic electric locos up close doesn't exactly come round too often, so this was particularly special. And that was it. In what genuinely felt like the blink of an eye, my time at the Greatest Gathering was all over. Or was it? Okay folks, here's the situation, right? I was only supposed to do yesterday, officially, for the Greatest Gathering, but having done everything but still felt like there was so much I hadn't seen, I had to come back today. If there was even half a chance I could come back today, I was going to take it. So here I am. Today the focus will be on pretty much most of the stuff I didn't get to see yesterday, which was a surprisingly large amount. And we're down the centre road here, which is where, when you walk in the main entrance and you kind of come through, this lane starts,
with 3 Class 50s, all lined up together, and today 2 of them have their engines on and are making some spectacular noises. You won't be able to hear them in the distance, they're that loud. Or more likely, you could probably hear one of the Class 57s that's also in this centre lane. There's 3 here. You'll remember our encounter with the Class 57 came when I rode the Night Riviera, the GWR Night Riviera. One of the GWR ones is here. It's 57604 Pendennis Castle, obviously named after the legendary Great Western Steam loco. And right over there is, well, opposite where I'm sat right now, is the Progress Pendolino that we came here in on Thursday, with the Thunderbird 57 on the front of it. So you've got all these big monsters, huge, powerful diesels, epic machines, and yet right in the middle of them, and I think this sums up the spirit of this event perfectly, is what I'm sat in right now, which is a little Sentinel shunter. It's a tiny little thing compared to everything else. It's tiny. It's owned by the Plym Valley Railway. I love the fact that this one they've decked out in an intercity livery. Talk about on-roads typical, but who cares? It's really cool. This is the kind of loco I'd want to operate and drive and own. Humble little shunty boy. Anyway, this is supposed to be for lots of people to come wander in and check out this cab, not just me to vlog in, so I'd better get moving. There's still a lot of stuff that we've yet to see.
So you know how I said I felt like I hadn't seen everything at the Greatest Gathering? Well, walking around on the Saturday, it quickly became obvious just how much I'd missed the day before. For one, I'd somehow missed most of Stevenson Row, as in, this row right down the middle of the entire site. Located on Stevenson Row, alongside the Sentinel and the Class 57s, we also had the very first of the legendary Class 37s, number D67100. Additionally in this area were 2 of the 6 preserved Class 55 Deltics, Alicidon and Tullyar, which would have taken over top link expresses on the East Coast main line from the likes of the Flying Scotsman in 1961. The name Deltic comes from their unique triangle-shaped Napier Deltic engines designed for motor torpedo boats, and with each loco producing a whopping 3,300 horsepower, no wonder these 2 were named after champion racehorses. And appropriately alongside these 2 Deltics was this, a Class 23 Baby Deltic, equipped with a smaller version of the same Napier engine as the big boys, hence the name. No original examples of the Class 23 were ever preserved, so this is in fact a work-in-progress new build project, just like Tornado and number 82045. Speaking of sections I missed the previous day, I then found an entire treasure trove of locos hidden in the back of G-Shop that I'd only been able to catch a glimpse of across the shop floor the previous day. The highlight of this section was undoubtedly Midland Railway number 1000, the sole survivor of its kind, coming back home to the city where it was born way back in 1902. Also hiding in here were some absolute behemoths of steam. LMS Princess Royal Class number 46203 Princess Margaret Rose, a favourite of mine from the Great Central Railway in BR9F number 92214, and a GWR King Class number 6023 King Edward II. Oh, and there was even a Nottingham tram in here, and a retro 4-vet 3rd Rail EMU. Imagine finding this lot down the back of your wardrobe. Anyway, next door was this chap, Mr. Laurie M. Marvels, along with his adorable little Ruston 48DS diesel shunter, giving the Plym Valley Sentinel a run for its money in the cuteness stakes. Also in this vicinity was the modern machine section, featuring a favourite of ours, the Class 68, as well as its bi-mode cousin, the Class 88, and another one of the brand new tri-mode Class 93s. However, if we're talking bi- and tri-mode machines, we have to mention these 2 Class 73s, members of one of the very first classes of bi-mode locomotive ever made in the UK. Built back in the early 1960s to run on either 3rd rail electric current or from a small onboard diesel engine, these versatile locos predate the likes of the Class 38 by over 50 years. And how could I forget the Inspiration Train? Hauled by a pair of Class 66s, this was an entire museum exhibition on wheels which toured up and down the country spreading the history and story of the railways in honour of Railway 200. Fabulous. Over here in this yard section which ran parallel to the test tracks could be found someone else returning home to where they were born. This Derby Lightweight DMU, first built right here at Litchurch Lane Works back in 1956. This was also where Train Ride 2 was running, a demonstration rail tour train hauled in top and tail formation by Bahamas' sister, number 45699 Galatea, masquerading as another former classmate, 45627 Sierra Leone, and Class 37, number 37516. And still there was more to see, yet more locos that I'd either missed in the shuffle the day before, or had only just arrived as the weekend went on. Back on Stevenson Road could be found a brand new Class 398 tram train, which will eventually end up working on the Cardiff Metro network, as well as multiple examples of the legendary Class 43 high-speed train. Because, come on, there's no way you could have an event covering the entire history of British railway travel and not have these legends represented. Then, at long last, it was time to finally investigate one particular part of the show that I'd had to completely gloss over the day before, the Model Railway Hall in D-Shop, full of displays from model companies and traders, and a selection of appropriately excellent layouts. The fact that this hall alone could have been its own standalone model railway show anywhere else just served to underline the sheer size and scale of this event as a whole. I could have easily spent my entire day just in here. Then again, I could have easily said that about many different parts of the Greatest Gathering. Unfortunately, just like the previous day, time was disappearing through the hourglass far too quickly for my liking. So, with 4 o'clock fast approaching once more, I just had time to check out Train Ride 5, the Institute of Mechanical Engineers Railway Challenge, featuring a train built by Alstom graduates and University of Derby students, and then to conclude my weekend, a visit to Train Ride 4, a diminutive 15-inch gauge railway. Pioneered by Sir Arthur Hayward in the 1890s for use on private estates and in military logistics, 15-inch gauge is a whole 9 inches smaller than narrow gauge. And just like the narrow gauge demonstration line, this one also ran on temporary tracks and featured 2 locomotives from either end of the age range. On one end of our train was Katie, one of Hayward's original locomotives from 1896, now preserved on the Ravenglass and Eskdale Railway. And on the other end was Anne, a wee nipper in comparison, having only been built in 2004, who now lives at the Perrygrove Railway. And so, after such a hectic and intense few days, having a relaxed ride on this gorgeous little train was just about the perfect way to end my Greatest Gathering weekend. This time, for good. Well, sort of.
In a few moments' time, we're going to be arriving into Derby Station. If you're leaving us here this afternoon, please start taking a momentary time. Check around seat areas, luggage, overhead rack spaces for all of your personal belongings.
Hello, people of the internet. Here is the situation. I'm exhausted, my feet are in agonising amounts of pain, but for the 4th day in a row, I'm at Derby Station. Today, it's the 3rd and final day of the Greatest Gathering TM. And before you ask, no, I haven't somehow managed to swindle a ticket for today as well, but I figured, as a way to kind of end off the entire weekend of festivities, this was something I kind of knew was going to be happening anyway. You see, at Derby Station, which is just, it's 15 minutes walk from the actual Litchurch Lane works, and it's about, well, you can basically see the entrance to the works from the end of the platforms at Derby. And anticipating how busy it was going to be, and anticipating the amount of stuff that was going to be happening kind of in and around and as a result of the Greatest Gathering TM, mostly including stuff like rail tours and that, Derby Station have actually set up some, pens for, people who just want to watch the trains and stuff. And of course there's going to be stock from the Greatest Gathering itself coming and going, so they figured they should set up places for people to just watch the trains and stuff here on the platforms at Derby. And speaking of rail tours, do you remember the Branch Line Society rail tour we arrived here on Thursday, where this all started? They've been doing a series of special shuttle tours between Chesterfield and Barton Hill, I think, between here and Derby, all across the weekend. 2 each day, that's 2 each day, including 2 today. And the first of those is due to arrive back here in about 5 or 10 minutes or so, if that. So, how about we finish the Glasto/Eras tour of trains with a nice sort of chill train spotting day, I suppose. We're not going to watch the headliners on the main stage today. We're vibing in the nearby campgrounds, I guess. I checked my step counter on my phone last night when I got back to my hotel. I've walked the best part of 25 miles over the past few days, and that wasn't including today. I'm so tired, man. I'm kind of glad this is the sort of event that'll only happen once in a generation, because my God, I don't know if I can handle this every year, let alone the people organising it. I bet they don't want to do this again for another 200 years, but it's been a lovely weekend. So let's end it in a nice, pleasant, relaxed fashion, shall we?
So, yeah, about that whole sitting watching the rail tours come and go thing. It turned out that there was a few seats still available on the next rail tour that was scheduled to depart, so I sort of ended up on it. Like I said, it's not like a weekend like this will be happening again anytime soon, so why not make the most of it? And besides, sitting in a nice comfy seat on a BR Mark II coach was probably far better for my sore feet anyway. So I settled down with a cup of tea and enjoyed a jaunt out and back through the historic Midland Railway heartlands of Sheffield, Chesterfield, Toton Depot and Barrow Hill. A pair of Class 66s hauled us on the outbound leg before tagging out of Barrow Hill to be replaced by a Class 37. Perfection. And given how my weekend started with a Branch Line Society rail tour, this felt like the perfect way to bring things full circle and conclude such a monumental event. Come on. What other mug was I going to use for this particular cup of tea? I had planned to wait until I got home from the Greatest Gathering weekend to kind of give myself a chance to decompress and process my thoughts and feelings about the entire weekend. In fact, the real Railway 200 has now passed, 27th of September 2025. There was various events happening for that. I mean, there was a replica locomotion number 1, and the replica of the original train was run along as much of the original Stockton and Darlington route across that weekend. So they did a whole thing for that. Unfortunately, that was one of the weekends where I decided to not have any spoons and be very burned out, so I didn't manage to do much that weekend. But I think this is testament for how much I enjoyed the Greatest Gathering weekend. The fact that I had done that weekend and had done that to honour Railway 200 meant that I didn't feel too bad or like too much FOMO about missing out on the actual Railway 200 weekend. The thing is, as I'm filming this right now, I have no idea how long this video is going to come out at. It feels like I've packed in as much as I possibly can. But also, I know there's a lot of stuff that I never actually got around to seeing at the Greatest Gathering, and there's a lot of stuff that I missed out on in this video. When I was first planning out my Greatest Gathering weekend, I originally was going to just do the rail tour on the Thursday and the preview bit there. That's all I was going to do. Ain't it a good thing I didn't? And I think overall, given the size and scale of the event, I think the organisation, from my perspective anyway, from my experience, was about as good as it possibly could have been. Given the sheer scale of the operation and all the logistics involved, getting everything to that one place in the first place, let alone then arranging it all in such a way, I think they did about as good a job as they possibly could. I think it was really well organised, there was a good flow to everything was well laid out. The staff and volunteers and that were very helpful. And speaking of the sheer size and scale of the event, I remember when the event was first announced, about 5 or 6 months out, there was some cynicism from certain quarters online. I know that will surprise precisely nobody watching this video, that there was some cynicism from certain people online in a space like this. I never heard that one before. One of the main things I heard was, surely you can see all this stuff at heritage railways whenever you want. On the one hand, yes, except you'd probably have to go around every single heritage railway and museum in the country. Like, the whole appeal of this event, it was the fact that it was all in the same place, all at the same time. And on the other hand, you had a lot of stuff there that you can't just go to a regular heritage railway and see, because there is no such thing as an electrified heritage railway. So all the electric multiple units and electric locomotives, you're not exactly going to pop down your local heritage railway and see them, are you? I kind of surprised myself with how much time I spent looking around those exhibits and those locos specifically over the weekend, but I did so knowing that I'm not exactly going to get many chances to see them outside of a museum exhibit, or if I get lucky on a rail tour. And again, when are you ever going to see all of that? All of those steam, diesel, electric, every kind of train you could possibly think of, all in one place, all at the same time. That was the big draw of the event, and I think they pulled it off spectacularly. I don't know if anyone else had this, but for me, there was a lot of stuff there that felt it meant a lot to me kind of personally, not just in terms of the general history of the railways, but in terms of like my personal history with being a rail enthusiast or a train nerd or whatever. For example, something like the Eurostar. They had one of the original Eurostar trains on display, as well as a HST. Now, one of my first train toys when I was very, 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 very small was a wooden toy train set. I think it was a Brio toy train set. And I remember having a wooden Eurostar and a wooden HST. So those trains have always been very special to me. In particular, the Black 544932 may have just looked like another steam loco there, but without that one locomotive, I'm probably not making this video right now. Back in 2010, when I'd long since, or so I thought, grown out of being into trains, I just so happened to be going up into London to hang out with a mate of mine, and we were on the train into Victoria, and we saw 44932 sitting in platform 2 at London Victoria, ready to haul a rail tour. And I remember just being so stunned at the time, being like, oh my god, it's a steam train! And right from there, even though my love of trains kind of came and then it went again for a few years, and then it came back eventually, I don't think it ever comes back to begin with without that one locomotive and that one chance encounter that day. Even seeing that particular loco there was really cool. And seeing locos like all the diesels that my dad grew up train spotting and telling me stories about and showing photos of, like obviously his beloved Western, the Warship, the Peaks, the Deltics, all sorts of stuff. As a kid, he'd tell me stories of chasing all those locos around and spotting them and taking pictures of them and stuff like that. So that was really cool. You even had locos like 45596 Bahamas, one of my favourite steam engines that I've discovered through doing this series. We met Bahamas at the Keighley and Worth Valley. Even going as far as that BLS rail tour that I did at the very end of the weekend on the Sunday. The Class 37 that took us back from Barrow Hill back to Derby was 37407 Blackpool Tower. That was one of the 2 Class 37s that was operating the Wherry Line short set the very last time I rode on it in the summer of 2019. Even that had some like personal significance, which I thought was amazing. And ultimately, the best part of the entire Greatest Gathering weekend for me was the fact that it wasn't just celebrating 200 years of railway history, but it was a celebration of the railways at their very best and a reminder of why we love railways, which felt kind of nice for me, especially because the whole reason I started this series was to try and convey and explain why I love trains and railways and railway history so much. I've always said you don't have to be into trains as much as I am, but as long as you understand why I love them so much, mission accomplished. And the Greatest Gathering sort of did that for me. It just kind of felt like this is what can be done when the whole of the railway kind of community and industry puts their heads together and says, right, this is what we're going to do when we really work together. It was just such a joyous weekend, really. It really was just such a happy weekend. It just felt like a celebration of why we love railways and trains. The Greatest Gathering was the greatest possible reminder to me as to why I've always loved trains and I always will. So I think that all that's left to do is this. Happy 200th birthday, railways, and I'll see you all soon on the way.